There are moments in life that feel ordinary on the surface but carry something deeper underneath. Moments where you pause for no clear reason. Moments where your spirit feels restless, even when everything around you looks calm. Moments where you can't explain it, but something inside you keeps whispering, "Pay attention, this matters." This is one of those moments. This is not just another message passing through your screen. This is not something you randomly stumbled upon while scrolling. Oh, this is a divine interruption. A sacred pause in the middle of your routine, placed here intentionally, specifically for you. Because July 16th is not just another day. It has been marked. Not on your calendar, but in the spiritual realm. And if you are here right now, reading these words, feeling that strange pull in your chest, then you already know something is different. Have you noticed it? The way your thoughts have been shifting lately, the way certain things no longer feel right, even though they used to feel normal, the way your patience has changed, your tolerance has changed, your energy has changed. It's subtle, but it's undeniable. You've been feeling things you can't explain, sensing things before they happen, pulling away from people without fully understanding why, questioning things you once accepted without hesitation. And maybe you tried to ignore it. Maybe you told yourself, "I'm just overthinking." Maybe you pushed it aside, thinking it's just stress, just mood, just life being life. But what if it's not? What if this feeling, this shift, this quiet stirring inside you is actually something awakening? Because Archangel Michael is stepping forward now, not gently, not quietly, but with authority. And his message is clear. You were meant to hear this right now. Not yesterday. Not tomorrow. Now. Because something has already started. You see, the spiritual realm does not move randomly. There are moments when heaven aligns everything with precision, timing, awareness, revelation. And July 16th is one of those moments where alignment begins to reveal what has been hidden within you all along. Something has been building inside you for weeks, maybe months, maybe even years. A pressure you couldn't explain. A calling you couldn't define. A discomfort that kept pushing you forward even when you wanted to stay where you were. That wasn't confusion. That was preparation. And now something has crossed a threshold. You didn't notice the exact second it happened. There was no loud sound, no visible sign. But in the unseen realm, something awakened within you. Something that has changed the way your spirit moves, the way your energy speaks, the way your presence is felt. And here's the part that might shake you: you're not the only one who noticed. Because when something awakens in you that carries light, purpose, and power, it does not go unseen. It gets attention. Not just from heaven, but from darkness as well. Have you felt that tension lately? Like something is watching, not physically, but spiritually. Like your peace is being tested in small, strange ways. Like distractions have increased just when you started gaining clarity. That is not random. That is response. Because something in you has shifted, and now the atmosphere around you is reacting to it. But don't misunderstand this moment. This is not meant to scare you. This is meant to awaken you even further. Because Archangel Michael does not bring messages without purpose. He does not interrupt your path without reason. And he certainly does not step in unless something significant is unfolding. And right now something is. You are standing at the edge of awareness, at the beginning of something that will change how you see yourself, how you see others, how you move through this world. This is the moment where things start to make sense, where the confusion begins to clear, where the feeling you've been carrying finally gets a name. But here's the truth you must understand before moving forward. You cannot treat this like ordinary information. You cannot listen passively. You cannot dismiss what your spirit is recognizing. You cannot walk away unchanged, because this message is not here to entertain you. It is here to prepare you. Something has awakened. And whether you fully understand it yet or not, your life is already beginning to shift because of it. So stay with this. Lean into this. Let your awareness rise with every word. Because what comes next will reveal why this awakening matters, why it happened now, and why even the forces you cannot see are now paying attention to you. This is only the beginning. Type "I am awakening" in the comments if you feel this stirring within you. Blessing code 1616 is now activating around your spirit. Something has shifted inside you, and you didn't need anyone to tell you. You felt it before you understood it. It didn't arrive with noise. It didn't come with explanation. And it certainly didn't ask for permission. It simply awakened. Vitally. Deeply. Irreversibly. And now, nothing feels exactly the same. You've been trying to go back to your old mindset, haven't you? Trying to think the way you used to think, react the way you used to react, tolerate what you used to tolerate. But something inside you resists it now. Something inside you refuses to shrink back into who you were. And that resistance, that discomfort, that inner tension is not confusion. It is activation. Because what has awakened in you is not ordinary awareness. It is spiritual sensitivity. You are beginning to feel energy in ways you couldn't before. You walk into a room, and without a word being spoken, you already know the atmosphere. You sense tension before it becomes visible. You detect intentions before they are revealed. You notice shifts in people's tone, their presence, their silence. Things that once went unnoticed now feel loud to your spirit. And it's overwhelming, isn't it? At times, you wish you could turn it off. You wish you could go back to not noticing, not sensing, not feeling so deeply. Because now, you see through things. You see through conversations. You see through patterns. You see through people. And once you see, you cannot unsee. This is the weight of awakening. But it's not just external. It's happening within you too. Your thoughts are changing. The way you process things is evolving. You're questioning things you once accepted without hesitation. Old beliefs are starting to feel incomplete. Old habits feel misaligned. Even the way you speak to yourself has shifted. There's a voice inside you now that is sharper, clearer, more aware. Sometimes it guides you. Sometimes it warns you. Sometimes it stops you mid-decision and makes you pause without explanation. That voice is not random. That is your spirit coming online in a way it never has before. And with that awakening comes emotional intensity. You feel things deeper now. Moments hit harder. Energy lingers longer. You experience sudden waves of clarity, followed by moments of heaviness that seem to come from nowhere. One day you feel strong, focused, aligned, and the next, you feel drained, distant, almost disconnected. This is not instability. This is adjustment. Because your spirit is recalibrating to a higher level of awareness, and your mind is still trying to catch up. Archangel Michael speaks into this moment with precision and authority, saying, "What you are experiencing is not a breakdown, it is a breakthrough in progress. Your system is not failing, it is upgrading. Your sensitivity is not a weakness, it is your new strength being activated." But here is what you must understand clearly. When something awakens within you, it begins to change everything around you. You may have already noticed that certain relationships feel different. Conversations that once felt natural now feel forced. People you once connected with easily now feel distant, even if nothing has visibly changed. It's not because something went wrong. It's because something shifted within you. you are no longer aligned with the same frequency. And this is where it becomes difficult. Because part of you wants to hold on. Part of you wants to maintain what is familiar. But another part of you, deeper, stronger, more aware, knows that you cannot go back to what no longer matches who you are becoming. This awakening is separating you not to isolate you, but to realign you. And while this is happening, your intuition is sharpening. You're starting to trust your inner knowing more, even when you don't have proof. You're beginning to feel when something is off, even when everything looks fine on the surface. You hesitate at certain decisions, not out of fear, but because something inside you is telling you to wait. That is not doubt. That is discernment being formed within you. And here is the truth that may feel uncomfortable but necessary. Not everyone will understand this version of you. Some will say you've changed. Some will say you become distant. Some will feel unsettled by your presence without knowing why. But what they are reacting to is not your behavior, it is your energy. Because when your spirit awakens, it carries a presence that disrupts what is not aligned. And that disruption is already being noticed. This is why you feel watched in subtle ways. This is why attention around you feels different. This is why situations seem to respond to you differently than before. Because your energy is no longer neutral. It is active. It is aware. It is powerful in ways you are just beginning to understand. You are not who you were even a short time ago. Something has turned on within you. Something that sees deeper, feels stronger, and responds faster. And Archangel Michael is making this clear. This awakening is not temporary. It is not a phase. It is not something you can ignore and expect to fade. It is the beginning of who you are becoming. So do not fight it. Do not suppress it. Do not question it as if something is wrong with you. Because nothing is wrong with you. Something is right with you for the first time at this level. And now that it has awakened, it will continue to grow. Type "I trust my awakening" in the comments if you feel this shift within you. Blessing code 2727 is now surrounding your spirit. There is a moment in every spiritual journey when growth stops being silent. A moment when what has been happening within you begins to echo beyond you. And without you realizing it, your transformation starts to create a reaction in the unseen. This is that moment. Because what has awakened inside you has not gone unnoticed. Loved by people and not by darkness. You may have already sensed it in subtle ways. A strange increase in resistance just when you began to feel clarity. Small disruptions that seem too perfectly timed. Moments where your peace is suddenly interrupted without reason. It's almost as if something is testing you, watching how you respond, studying how you move. And that feeling is not your imagination. Because when light intensifies, it draws attention. Archangel Michael speaks with unmistakable authority here. The reason you are experiencing this shift in pressure is because your awakening has made you visible in a way you were not before. You are no longer moving unconsciously. You are no longer blending into patterns that once kept you hidden. You are becoming aware, and awareness is something darkness monitors closely. Understand this clearly. The enemy does not waste energy on what poses no threat. It does not study what has no impact. It does not observe what has no potential. So if you feel watched, if you feel tested, if you feel like something has shifted in the way life responds to you, it is because something in you has risen to a level that requires attention. But this is where most people misunderstand what is happening. They think attention from darkness means they are under attack because they are weak. They assume resistance is a sign that something is wrong. They interpret pressure as a signal to retreat, to shrink, to go back to what feels safe and familiar. But that is not the truth. The truth is, attention comes because of significance. You are not being observed because you are vulnerable. You are being observed because you are becoming powerful. And that power is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is not something you announce. It is something you carry. Something that changes the atmosphere without effort. Something that shifts dynamics without explanation. You may have noticed how certain situations react differently now. People respond to you differently. Energy around you feels more intense. Conversations take unexpected turns. Even silence feels heavier, as if something is being held back, unspoken but present. This is because your presence is no longer passive. It is active. And when your presence becomes active, it disrupts what once operated without resistance. This is why distractions have increased. This is why doubt tries to creep in when you are closest to clarity. This is why old patterns attempt to pull you back just as you begin to move forward. These are not random occurrences. They are responses. Because the moment you start seeing clearly, the moment you start thinking differently, the moment you start stepping out of unconscious patterns, you become harder to control. And what cannot control you will try to observe you, to study your behavior, to anticipate your decisions, to look for openings where you might hesitate, question yourself, or fall back into old habits. But here is the critical truth Archangel Michael needs you to understand. Observation does not equal power over you. Just because something is watching does not mean it can stop you. Just because there is attention does not mean there is authority. You are not being hunted. You are being measured. Measured by the level of awareness you carry. Measured by how you respond under pressure. Measured by whether you will trust your awakening or retreat from it. And this is where your role becomes important. Because now that you are aware of this attention, you cannot move carelessly. You cannot ignore what your spirit is picking up. You cannot dismiss the subtle warnings that rise within you. This is not the time to second-guess yourself. This is the time to sharpen your awareness even further. To observe without reacting impulsively. To move with intention rather than emotion. To recognize that every moment of clarity you hold strengthens your position. Because darkness does not fear noise. It fears awareness. It fears someone who can see through illusion. It fears someone who cannot be easily distracted. It fears someone who begins to move with precision instead of habit. And that is who you are becoming. So if you feel that shift, if you feel that pressure, if you sense that something is paying closer attention to you than before, do not panic. Do not shrink. Do not fall back into old patterns just to feel comfortable again. Stand in it. Because this attention is not the end of something. It is the confirmation of something beginning. Something that has already awakened inside you and is now strong enough to be noticed. Type "I do not fear the watching" in the comments if you stand in this awareness. Blessing code 3333 is now activated around your path. As this awakening unfolds and you begin to understand the weight of what has been activated within you, know this: every message like this is a seed planted into souls across the world, breaking confusion and restoring clarity. When you choose to support this mission through Super Thanks with a PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a channel. You are sowing into a divine harvest that reaches hearts still lost in darkness. The word says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And this is not just written, it is alive, moving through your obedience right now. I feel led to say this clearly. I am stepping into alignment by supporting what feeds my spirit. This is your moment to act. Not later, not someday, but now, while your spirit is open and receptive. Every seed you release becomes light in someone else's storm and oil in someone else's lamp. Heaven records your generosity as obedience, not charity. So act in faith, release your seed, and watch how God multiplies it back into your life. Here is something you need to understand now, and it may change the way you see everything that has been happening in your life recently. What you thought were random struggles, what you assumed were just difficult days, emotional swings, or unfortunate timing were never just that. There has been a pattern, a rhythm to the resistance, a precision to the pressure. And now, Archangel Michael is revealing the truth you were not meant to see all at once, but are now strong enough to understand. You have been in a battle long before you recognized it as one. Not a battle you could see with your eyes. Not something you could point to and explain to others. But a hidden conflict, operating beneath the surface of your daily life, influencing your thoughts, your emotions, your energy, and even your decisions. And the reason you didn't immediately recognize it is because it did not come loudly. It came subtly, quietly, strategically. It came as delays when you were about to move forward. It came as confusion when you were finally gaining clarity. It came as emotional heaviness without a clear cause. It came as distractions that pulled your focus at the exact moment you needed to stay aligned. And because these things seemed small, you dismissed them. You told yourself it was just stress, just overthinking, just life being unpredictable. But when you step back now and look closely, you begin to see something else. You begin to see that it was not random. It was resistance with intention. Archangel Michael speaks into this with absolute clarity. What you have been experiencing is spiritual warfare, but not in the way you may have imagined it. Not loud chaos, not obvious destruction, but precise interference designed to keep you from fully stepping into your awareness. Because once you become fully aware, the game changes. And that is exactly what this hidden battle has been trying to prevent. Think about it. How many times were you close to a breakthrough, only to feel suddenly drained? How many times did you gain clarity, only to second-guess yourself moments later? How many times did you feel ready to move forward, only to be pulled back by something that didn't even make sense? That was not coincidence. That was interruption. And interruption is one of the most effective tactics used in unseen conflict, because it does not destroy you outright. It delays you. It confuses you. It keeps you circling instead of progressing. But now something has shifted. Because your awareness has increased, the same tactics are no longer as effective. You are beginning to notice patterns. You are starting to question things that once felt normal. You are becoming harder to distract, harder to confuse, harder to pull backward. And this is why the battle feels more noticeable now. Not because it suddenly started, but because you are finally seeing it. You are recognizing when your energy drops without reason. You are catching when your thoughts begin to spiral unnecessarily. You are pausing when something feels off instead of pushing through blindly. This is what awakening does. It exposes what was hidden. And once something is exposed, it loses its ability to operate unnoticed. But here is where you must be careful, because recognizing the battle is only the first step. How you respond to it determines everything that follows. You cannot fight this the way you would fight visible problems. You cannot react impulsively, emotionally, or out of frustration, because this battle does not respond to noise. It responds to awareness, stability, and alignment. This is why Archangel Michael is emphasizing stillness, not weakness, not passivity, but controlled awareness. Because when you remain steady, you begin to see clearly. When you do not react immediately, you begin to understand what is actually happening. When you observe instead of absorb, you maintain your position. And your position is what matters most right now. Because the goal of this hidden warfare has never been to destroy you directly. It has been to move you out of alignment, to pull you away from clarity, to make you doubt your own perception, to create just enough confusion that you hesitate instead of act. But now that you see it, now that you understand it, that tactic begins to lose its power. You are no longer moving blindly. You are moving consciously. And that changes everything. Because a person who is unaware can be easily redirected. But a person who is aware becomes intentional, strategic, focused. And that is what you are becoming. So when you feel resistance now, you not immediately assume something is wrong. Instead, ask yourself what is being challenged. When confusion arises, do not accept it as truth. Instead, step back and observe it. When distractions appear, do not follow them automatically. Instead, question their timing. This is how you move through hidden battles. Not by force, but by awareness. Not by reacting, but by understanding. And as you continue to do this, something powerful begins to happen. The same patterns that once slowed you down begin to lose their grip. The same tactics that once confused you begin to feel obvious. The same resistance that once felt overwhelming begins to feel manageable. Because you are no longer inside the confusion. You are above it. And Archangel Michael is making this clear. This battle is not here to stop you. It is here to refine you, to sharpen your awareness, to strengthen your ability to remain aligned regardless of what is happening around you. So do not fear what you are now seeing. Do not feel overwhelmed by the realization, because this is not the beginning of the battle. This is the moment you rise above it. Type "I clearly now" in the comments if this truth resonates within you. Lesson code 4444 is now stabilizing your spirit and strengthening your awareness. There is a truth rising to the surface now, and it is not meant to comfort you in a passive way. It is meant to awaken you at a deeper level. Because everything you have experienced, every moment of resistance, every season of confusion, every unexplained delay, it all connects to one reality that you are only now beginning to fully understand. You were never ordinary. And the moment you accept that, not from ego, not from pride, but from clarity, everything begins to make sense. Because what you have been facing was never random pressure. It was targeted resistance. Not because you did something wrong, but because of what you carry. Because of what you are becoming. Because of what has been placed within you long before you were aware of it. Archangel Michael speaks with unwavering authority here. The reason you have felt different your entire life is because you are different. Not in a way that isolates you from others, but in a way that sets you apart in purpose, in perception, in spiritual sensitivity. There has always been something about you that does not fully align with the patterns around you. Something that questions what others accept. Something that sees beyond what others notice. And for a long time, you may have tried to suppress that. You may have tried to fit in, to think like everyone else, to ignore that inner voice that kept pushing you towards something deeper. But no matter how much you tried, it never fully went away. Because what is placed within you cannot be removed. It can only be delayed. And now, that delay has ended. This is why your life has followed a different rhythm. This is why things have not unfolded the same way they have for others. This is why you have faced challenges that seem disproportionate, confusing, or even unfair at times. It was never punishment. It was positioning. Because those who carry awareness must go through refinement. Those who are meant to see clearly must be trained to recognize distortion. Those who are called to move with purpose must first learn how to navigate resistance. And that process is what you have been living through. But here is the part that changes everything. When you are marked with purpose, you are also marked for attention. Not just from those who recognize your potential, but from forces that respond to it. This is why certain things in your life have felt targeted. Why specific patterns seem to repeat until you break them. Why certain people enter your life only to create confusion, distraction, or delay. Why moments of clarity are often followed by attempts to pull you back into old thinking. This is not coincidence. This is recognition. Because before you fully understood your own value, it was already recognized in the unseen. And that recognition created resistance. But understand this clearly. Being targeted does not mean you are vulnerable. It means you are valuable. It means there is something within you that carries impact. Something that, if fully realized, would shift not only your life, but the environments you move through, the people you encounter, the energy you bring into every space. And that is why you have felt this pressure, because pressure is often applied where there is potential. Think about the moments when you were closest to change, when you felt ready to step into something new, something bigger, something more aligned with who you are becoming. What happened in those moments? Something tried to pull you back. Doubt appeared. Distractions increased. Old habits resurfaced. Unexpected challenges emerged. Not to stop you completely, but to test whether you would move forward or retreat. And for a time, you may have retreated. You may have questioned yourself. You may have stepped back into what felt familiar because it was easier than pushing through the uncertainty. But now something is different. Now, you are seeing the pattern. Now, you are recognizing the cycle. And now, you are understanding that what you once thought were isolated moments are connected. And this awareness changes your position entirely. Because once you recognize that you are marked, not for struggle, but for purpose, you stop interpreting resistance as failure. You stop seeing pressure as a sign to quit. You stop allowing doubt to override your inner knowing. Instead, you begin to see resistance as confirmation. Confirmation that you are moving in a direction that matters. Confirmation that your awareness is expanding. Confirmation that you are stepping into something that carries weight. And Archangel Michael is making this clear. You are not being singled out for difficulty. You are being set apart for impact. Which means you must stop questioning why things have been harder at times, and start recognizing what that difficulty hath been preparing you for. Because everything you have faced has sharpened you, strengthened you, forced you to develop awareness that others may never reach. And now, that awareness is becoming your advantage. So do not shrink from this truth. Do not downplay what you feel. Do not return to thinking of yourself as ordinary when everything within you is showing you otherwise. Because you are marked, not by fear, not by a limitation, but by purpose. And now that this awakening has begun, that purpose is starting to rise in ways that can no longer be ignored. Type "I accept my purpose" in the comments if you recognize this truth within you. Blessing code 5555 is now aligning your path and strengthening your identity. There comes a point in your awakening where the shift is no longer just internal. It begins to reflect outward, touching your relationships, your environment, and the people you once moved around without question. And this is where things begin to feel uncomfortable in a way that is difficult to explain. Because what you are sensing is not always visible, not always provable, but undeniably real. Something about people around you has started to feel different. Not necessarily in what they say, but in how it feels when they say it. Not in their actions alone, but in the energy behind those actions. You may find yourself pausing more in conversations, noticing subtle changes in tone, questioning intentions that once felt harmless. And for a moment, you may wonder if you are overthinking, if you are reading too much into things, if this new awareness is creating unnecessary distance. But Archangel Michael speaks clearly into this moment. What you are experiencing is not overthinking. It is discernment being activated. Discernment does not always come as clear answers. It often comes as quiet discomfort, a sense that something does not fully align, even if everything appears fine on the surface. It is the ability to feel what is not being said, to recognize what is not immediately visible, to understand what cannot yet be explained logically. And now, that ability is growing within you. This is why certain interactions feel heavier than before. Why some people leave you feeling drained without any clear reason. Why you walk away from conversations with a sense that something was off, even if you cannot point to a specific moment. This is not your imagination creating problems. This is your awareness detecting misalignment. But here is where the test begins. Because discernment is not just about recognizing what is off. It is about how you respond to what you recognize. You will be faced with moments where your intuition tells you one thing, but your comfort tells you another. Moments where your awareness adjusts distance, but your emotions push you to stay. Moments where you feel the need to step back, but familiarity makes you hesitate. This is the tension between awakening and attachment. And this is where many people struggle. Because it is not easy to accept that not everyone who has been around you is aligned with where you are going. It is not easy to admit that some connections were based on who you used to be, not who you are becoming. It is not easy to step away from what is familiar, even when you know it no longer fits. But the truth remains. Not everyone is meant to go with you into this next phase. Some people were part of your past alignment, not your future clarity. Some connections existed for a season of growth, not for the direction you are now moving toward. And as your awareness increases, these differences become more noticeable, more difficult to ignore. This does not mean you must react with confrontation or conflict. Discernment is not about exposing others. It is about positioning yourself. It is about knowing when to engage and when to step back, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to maintain connection and when to create distance without explanation. Because not everything needs to be explained to be understood, and not everyone needs to agree with your shift for it to be valid. This is where your strength is tested. Can you trust what you feel without needing external validation? Can you honor your awareness even when it creates temporary discomfort? Can you step back from what no longer aligns without guilt pulling you back in? These are the questions that define this stage of your awakening. Because the more you grow, the more refined your environment must become. You cannot carry the same energy, the same dynamics, the same patterns into a higher level of awareness. What once felt normal may now feel restrictive. What once felt supportive may now feel limiting. And this is not because others have changed. It is because you have. And with that change comes clarity. Clarity about who truly supports your growth and who resists it. Clarity about who understands your shift and who feels threatened by it. Clarity about where your energy is valued and where it is quietly drained. And once you see this clearly, you cannot pretend otherwise. This is why Archangel Michael emphasizes caution, not fear. You are not being asked to isolate yourself or distrust everyone around you. You are being called to observe more carefully, to listen more deeply, to recognize the difference between alignment and attachment. Because not everything that feels familiar is meant to remain, and not everything that challenges you is meant to harm you. Discernment allows you to tell the difference. It allows you to move through your environment with awareness instead of assumption. It allows you to protect your energy without closing your heart. It allows you to remain open, but not unguarded. And this balance is what will guide you forward. So when something feels off, do not ignore it. When your intuition speaks, do not silence it. When your energy shifts around certain people or situations, do not dismiss it as nothing. Because these are not random signals. They are guidance. Guidance that is becoming stronger, clearer, and more precise with every step you take into your awakening. And as you continue to trust this guidance, you will find that your path becomes less confusing. Your decisions become more intentional. Your environment becomes more aligned. Not because everything changes overnight, but because you begin to choose differently. Type "I trust my discernment" in the comments if you are ready to honor what your spirit is showing you. Blessing code 6666 is now strengthening your awareness and protecting your energy. There is a moment when everything begins to turn, not loudly, not all at once, but in a way that is undeniable once you recognize it. That moment is what Archangel Michael is pointing to now. Because what awakened within you was only the beginning. What follows next is the shift. And the shift is not external first. It begins within you. After July 16th, something changes in how you carry yourself, even if you don't consciously try to change anything. Your presence becomes more grounded. Your reactions become more controlled. Your thoughts become sharper, more intentional, less scattered. You begin to notice that situations that once overwhelmed you no longer have the same effect. It's not that life suddenly becomes easy. It's that you become different within it. And that difference is what alters everything. Because power is not about controlling what happens around you. It is about controlling how you respond to what happens around you. And this is the shift that is now taking place. You are no longer reacting from habit. You are beginning to respond from awareness. You pause before speaking. You observe before acting. You sense before deciding. And that pause, that space between stimulus and response, is where your power now lives. You may begin to notice that certain situations that used to trigger you no longer pull the same reaction. Things that once strained you now feel manageable. Conversations that once confused you now feel easier to read. It is as if you are seeing everything from a slightly higher position, not above others, but above the chaos that once pulled you in. This is not detachment. This is elevation. And with this elevation comes a shift in how life interacts with you. Because when your internal state changes, your external reality begins to respond differently. Opportunities begin to appear in unexpected ways. Conversations begin to reveal more than they used to. Situations that once felt blocked begin to open, sometimes without explanation. But at the same time, something else happens. What is not aligned becomes more obvious. The contrast becomes clearer. You will begin to feel more strongly what fits and what does not. What supports your growth and what quietly resists it. What carries clarity and what brings confusion. This clarity is not always comfortable because it forces you to see things as they are, not as you hoped they would be. But this is necessary because power without clarity leads to misalignment. And you are now entering a phase where alignment matters more than comfort. Archangel Michael makes this clear. After this shift, you cannot operate the way you used to. The same patterns will feel heavier. The same environments will feel more draining. The same behaviors will feel more out of place. Not because they change, but because you did. And this is where many people struggle. Because part of them wants to hold on to what is familiar, even when it no longer fits. They try to maintain old patterns while stepping into new awareness, and this creates internal conflict, a feeling of being pulled in two directions at once. But that conflict is not meant to remain. It is meant to push you toward decision, toward choosing alignment over familiarity, toward choosing growth over comfort, toward choosing awareness over unconscious repetition. Because this shift is not temporary, it is a new baseline. And once you settle into it, you begin to notice something even more powerful. Your influence changes. Without forcing anything, without trying to control others, your presence begins to affect the environment around you. People respond differently. Conversations shift in tone. Situations unfold in ways that seem more aligned with your intention. This is not coincidence. This is coherence. Your internal state and your external reality are beginning to align. And when that alignment strengthens, your path becomes clearer. Decisions become easier. Distractions lose their pull. You begin to move with a sense of direction that does not rely on constant validation. You know when to act. You know when to wait. You know when something is right and when it is not. And that knowing becomes steady, consistent, reliable. But here is the key truth you must hold on to. This power shift is not something you announce. It is something you embody. It is quiet. It is controlled. It is precise. Because real power does not need to prove itself. It reveals itself through consistency, through clarity, through the way you move, think, and respond over time. And Archangel Michael is guiding you into this state now, not to make you distant, not to separate you from life, but to position you within it in a way that is aligned, aware, and effective. So as this shift continues, do not resist the changes you feel. Do not try to return to who you were before. Do not question why things no longer feel the same, because they are not meant to. You have crossed the threshold, and now you are stepping into a level of awareness and control that will shape everything that comes next. Type "I step into my power" in the comments if you feel this shift within you. Blessing code 7777 is now activating stability, clarity, and alignment in your path. Now that this shift has begun, now that your awareness has increased and your power has started to stabilize, there is something you must be prepared for. Because the moment you begin to move forward with clarity, something will try to pull you backward with distraction. Not forcefully, not obviously, but strategically. Archangel Michael is very precise here. The enemy does not always attack through destruction. It often works through distraction. Because distraction is subtle. It feels harmless. It appears normal. And yet, it is one of the most effective ways to slow down someone who is beginning to awaken. You may already be noticing it. Moments where your focus suddenly breaks without reason. Times when you sit down with clarity, intention, and direction only to feel your attention pulled somewhere else. Not towards something urgent, but towards something unnecessary. Something that consumes your time without adding value. This is not accidental. It is intentional redirection. Because when you are distracted, you are no longer aligned. When your focus is scattered, your awareness weakens. When your energy is divided, your progress slows. And that is exactly what this phase is designed to test. But distraction does not always come in obvious forms. Sometimes it comes as overthinking, thoughts that loop without resolution, pulling you deeper into confusion. You begin analyzing things that do not require analysis, questioning decisions that were already clear, creating doubt where there was once certainty. Sometimes it comes as emotional triggers. Small situations that provoke a reaction larger than necessary. A comment, a tone, a memory. Something that pulls you back into an emotional state you thought you had moved beyond. Sometimes it comes as comfort. The desire to return to habits that feel familiar but no longer serve you. To reconnect with patterns that once defined you, even though you now know they limit you. And sometimes it comes through people. Unexpected messages. Sudden invitations. Conversations that seem casual but carry an undertone that pulls your energy away from where it needs to be. Not always negative, not always harmful, but mistimed in a way that shifts your focus. This is the trap. Not everything that appears in your path is meant for you. Not everything that demands your attention deserves your energy. And not everything that feels comfortable is aligned with your growth. This is why discernment and focus must now work together. Because awareness without discipline can still be pulled off course. You may recognize the distraction but still follow it. You may sense something is off but still engage with it. And this is where the real test lies. Can you stay focused when everything around you is trying to divide your attention? Can you maintain clarity when thoughts attempt to cloud your mind? Can you continue moving forward even when familiar patterns call you back? This is not about perfection. This is about direction. Because every moment of distraction, if followed unconsciously, creates distance between you and your alignment. It pulls you slightly off course, not enough to notice immediately, but enough to slow your progress over time. And that is how delay happens. Not through one major mistake, but through small, repeated misalignments. But now you are aware, and awareness gives you choice. You can choose to pause when something tries to pull you away from your focus. You can choose to observe your thoughts instead of following them automatically. You can choose to recognize when something feels off, even if it appears normal on the surface. This is how you avoid the trap. Not by resisting everything, but by selecting carefully. Choosing what deserves your attention. Choosing what aligns with your direction. Choosing what strengthens your clarity instead of weakening it. And as you begin to make these choices consistently, something shifts again. Distractions lose their hold. Thoughts become quieter. Your focus becomes sharper. Because your energy is no longer scattered. It is directed. And directed energy creates momentum. Momentum that moves you forward, even when distractions are present. Momentum that keeps you aligned, even when old patterns try to return. Momentum that builds consistency, and consistency builds stability. This is what Archangel Michael is guiding you toward. Not a life without distractions, but a mind that is no longer controlled by them. Because the moment you master your attention, you master your direction. And when your direction is clear, your path becomes unstoppable. So when distractions appear now, do not follow them blindly. Do not assume they are harmless. Pause, observe, and choose consciously. Because every choice you make in this phase either strengthens your alignment or weakens it. And you are now in a position where your choices carry more weight than ever before. Type "I control my focus" in the comments if you are ready to stay aligned. Blessing code 8888 is now strengthening your discipline and sharpening your clarity. As this message settles into your spirit, and you begin to recognize how distractions have tried to pull you away from your purpose, understand that this very revelation is reaching thousands of others who are fighting the same unseen battle. When you release your support through Super Thanks with a PayPal link in the description, you are not just giving. You are sowing light into places where confusion once ruled. Scripture declares, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy." And right now, your act becomes a seed of awakening in someone else's life. Let this rise within you. I am choosing to fuel the message that is transforming me. This is not a passive moment. It is a prophetic opportunity to act in alignment. What you release now returns multiplied, not just materially, but spiritually, emotionally, and divinely. Heaven honors those who move when called, not when convenient. So step forward, release your seed, and become part of the light that is breaking chains across the world. At this point in your journey, after everything that has been revealed, after the awareness that has awakened and the shifts that have begun to take shape, there is something you must understand with absolute clarity. You are not navigating this alone. You are not exposed in the way your mind may sometimes try to convince you. You are not unguarded, even in moments when things feel uncertain. Because Archangel Michael is not just delivering a message. He is standing with you. And his presence is not symbolic. It is active. It is intentional. It is protective in ways that operate beyond what you can see or fully comprehend. This is what you must anchor into now, because as your awareness increases, it is easy to focus only on what is shifting, what is being revealed, what is being challenged. But you must also recognize what is covering you. There is protection over your life that has been there long before you became aware of it. Moments where things could have gone differently but didn't. Situations where outcomes could have been worse but somehow shifted. Encounters that could have led you down a different path but instead redirected you without explanation. You may have called it luck, coincidence, timing. But it was never random. It was intervention. And now, that protection is becoming more active, more direct, more aligned with your awareness. Because the more you awaken, the more responsibility you carry. And with that responsibility comes a different level of guidance and protection. Archangel Michael is known as a protector, a warrior, a force that stands between what is aligned with your purpose and what attempts to interfere with it. But understand this. His protection does not remove every challenge. It does not eliminate every difficulty. Instead, it positions you so that what is meant to harm you cannot reach you in the way it intends. It redirects. It blocks. It exposes. And sometimes it delays. There may be moments when you feel like something you wanted did not happen, something you expected did not unfold, something you were ready for did not come through. And in those moments, it is easy to feel frustration, confusion, even doubt. But what you do not always see is what was avoided, what was prevented, what did not reach you because it was not aligned. Protection does not always feel like progress. Sometimes it feels like pause. Sometimes it feels like redirection. Sometimes it feels like something being taken away. But in reality, it is positioning you, keeping you within alignment, ensuring that what enters your life does not disrupt what is being built within you. This is why Archangel Michael emphasizes trust. Not blind trust, but aware trust. Trust that recognizes that not everything you experience is meant to be understood immediately. That some things are unfolding in ways that will only make sense later. That protection is working even when you cannot see it clearly. And as you continue to move forward, you may begin to notice something else. Situations that once felt overwhelming begin to resolve more quickly. Confusion that once lingered begins to clear faster. Interactions that once drained you begin to lose their impact. It is not that life has stopped presenting challenges. It is that you are being shielded from their full effect. Because protection is not just about what happens around you. It is about how deeply it reaches you. And now, there is a boundary forming. A separation between what exists outside of you and what is allowed to affect you internally. This is the work of protection at a higher level, where not everything that appears in your environment is allowed to enter your state of being. where not every situation is allowed to disturb your clarity, where not every interaction is allowed to drain your energy. This is what it means to be covered, and with this covering comes responsibility, because protection does not replace awareness. It works with it. You are still required to pay attention, to listen to what you feel, to respond with intention, to avoid what you recognize as misaligned, because protection will guide you, but it will not force your decisions. It will create openings, but you must choose to follow them. It will show you what to avoid, but you must choose to step away. This is the balance you are now stepping into, where you are supported but also responsible, guided but also aware, protected but also present in your choices. And as you continue to operate within this balance, something becomes clear. You are not as vulnerable as you once thought. You are not as exposed as your fears may suggest. You are positioned with awareness, positioned with guidance, positioned with protection that is both subtle and powerful. And Archangel Michael is making this known so that you do not move in fear, so that you do not shrink in the face of pressure, so that you do not question whether you are alone in this process. Because you are not. There is a presence with you, a force that stands between you and what is not meant to reach you, a protection that does not always announce itself but always operates. So as you move forward from this point, carry this understanding with you, not as something you hope is true, but as something you know. You are protected, not in a way that removes you from life, but in a way that keeps you aligned within it. Type "I am divinely protected" in the comments if you stand in this truth. Blessing code 9999 is now surrounding your path with protection and guidance. Now that you see more clearly, now that you understand what has been unfolding within you and around you, there is something that can no longer be avoided. Awareness without action will not carry you forward. Understanding without movement will not change your position. And this is the moment where everything begins to depend on what you choose next. Because this is not just a message of revelation. It is a call that does not wait for perfect conditions, a call that does not depend on how ready you feel, a call that rises within you whether you acknowledge it or not. And Archangel Michael is making this unmistakably clear. You are being asked to rise now, not later, not when everything feels easier. Now, you may feel the weight of that, the hesitation, the questions that begin to surface. What does it mean to rise? What exactly should you do? How do you move forward without making mistakes? But understand this. Rising is not about having every answer. It is about stepping into alignment with what you already know. You already feel what is no longer right for you. You already sense what is draining your energy. You already recognize the patterns that are holding you back. And yet, part of you hesitates. Not because you are unaware, but because change requires decision. And decision requires letting go. Letting go of what is familiar. Letting go of what once felt safe. Letting go of habits, environments, and even connections that no longer align with who you are becoming. And this is where many people remain stuck, not because they lack awareness, but because they resist action. But you are no longer in a position where you can remain still. Because once awareness reaches a certain level, staying the same creates internal conflict. You feel it as tension, as restlessness, as a sense that you are not fully aligned with yourself. That feeling is not discomfort for no reason. It is direction. It is your spirit pushing you toward movement. And movement does not mean dramatic changes overnight. It does not mean forcing outcomes or trying to control everything at once. It means intentional steps, conscious decisions, Small but consistent actions that bring you into alignment with what you already know is right. It means choosing differently. Choosing where you place your attention. Choosing how you respond to situations. Choosing what you engage with and what you step away from. Because every choice you make either reinforces your alignment or weakens it. This is why discipline becomes important now. Not rigid control, but focused intention. The ability to pause before reacting. The ability to observe before deciding. The ability to remain steady even when emotions rise. Because rising is not just about what you do, it is about how you carry yourself through every moment. Archangel Michael emphasizes this clearly. Your strength is not in force. It is in control. Control of your thoughts. Control of your reactions. Control of your direction. And this control is built through consistency. You do not need to prove anything to anyone. You do not need to explain your shift to those who do not understand it. You do not need validation to move forward. What you need is alignment. Alignment between what you feel, what you know, and what you choose. Because once those three begin to match, your path becomes clearer. Decisions become easier. Movement becomes natural. And this is where rising truly begins. Not as a sudden transformation, but as a steady progression. A shift in how you live, think, and respond every day. You may not see immediate results. You may not feel a dramatic change right away. But over time, something powerful begins to happen. Your environment starts to adjust. Your experiences begin to reflect your new level of awareness. Opportunities appear that match your direction. Because when you rise internally, life responds externally. But none of this happens if you remain passive. None of this unfolds if you continue to ignore what you already know. And that is why this moment matters. Because you are no longer unaware. You are no longer guessing. You are no longer moving blindly. You have seen enough, felt enough, understood enough. Now, you must act. Even if it feels uncomfortable. Even if it requires change. Even if it means stepping into the unknown. Because the unknown you are moving toward is aligned with your growth, while the familiar you are holding on to is tied to who you used to be. And you cannot carry both. You must choose. So rise. Not loudly. Not forcefully. But deliberately. Step into alignment with what you already know. Move with intention. And trust that every aligned step you take strengthens the path ahead of you. Type "I choose to rise" in the comments if you are ready to move forward. Blessing code 1010 is now activating strength, clarity, and forward movement in your life. There comes a moment in every transformation where the question is no longer, "What is happening to me?" but instead, "Who am I becoming through this?" And this is the moment you are standing in now. Because everything that has unfolded, everything that has been revealed, everything you have felt shifting within you has not just been about change. It has been about identity. You are not just experiencing new awareness. You are stepping into a new version of yourself. A version that was always there, but not fully activated. A version that could not emerge until you moved through the confusion, the resistance, the pressure that shaped your perception and sharpened your understanding. And now, that version is rising. But this is where things become deeply personal. Because becoming someone new does not feel like gaining something. It often feels like losing something. Losing the old way you saw yourself. Losing the identity you once held onto. Losing the patterns that once defined how you move through the world. And this can feel disorienting. You may look at yourself and feel different, but not fully understand why. You may notice your thoughts have changed, Your reactions have shifted, your priorities have evolved, but you have not yet fully put it into words. You are in between who you were and who you are becoming. The spaces where identity is revealed. Archangel Michael speaks into this moment with clarity. You are not meant to return to who you were. And we're going to serve it to purpose. It carried you through what you needed to experience. It held the mindset that allowed you to survive, to learn, to grow to this point. But it is not who you are now. And trying to hold on to it will only create confusion. Because your identity is expanding. You are becoming more aware, more intentional, more aligned with truth rather than habit. You are no longer operating on autopilot. You are no longer reacting without thinking. You are no longer accepting things simply because they are familiar. You are questioning. You are observing. You are choosing. And these shifts define identity more than anything else. Because identity is not just what you call yourself. It is how you think, how you respond, how you move through the world when no one is watching, and all of that is changing within you. You may notice that you are less reactive than before. Situations that once triggered immediate responses now meet a pause. You think before you speak. You observe before you act. You allow space between what happens and how you respond. That space is your growth. That space is your power. And within that space, a new identity is forming. One that is not driven by emotion alone, but by awareness. One that is not easily pulled by external influence, but guided by internal clarity. One that does not seek constant validation, but moves with quiet confidence. And yet, this identity may feel unfamiliar, because you have not fully lived in it yet. You are still adjusting, still learning what it means to carry yourself this way consistently, still discovering how to trust this version of you without questioning it every step of the way. But this is where the revelation becomes important. You are not becoming someone else. You are becoming more of who you were always meant to be. The clarity you feel was always within you. The awareness you are developing was always possible for you. The strength you are beginning to carry was always part of your nature. It was simply buried under layers of conditioning, patterns, and experiences that shaped you over time. And now, those layers are being removed. This is why things feel different. Not because something new hadn't been added, but because something false had been stripped away. And what remains is closer to your true identity. But here is what you must understand moving forward. This identity requires consistency. It is not enough to recognize it in moments of clarity and then fall back into old patterns when things become uncomfortable. It is not enough to feel aligned sometimes, and then ignore that alignment when it challenges your ways of being. You must begin to live as this version of yourself. Not occasionally, but consistently. Because identity is reinforced through repetition, through the choices you make daily, through the way you respond to situations again and again, through the standards you hold yourself to, even when no one else sees it. And as you continue to do this, something powerful happens. This new identity becomes natural, not forced, not something you have to think about constantly, but something you simply are. And when that happens, everything around you adjusts. Your environment begins to match your internal state. Your relationships begin to reflect your level of awareness. Your opportunities begin to align with who you have become. Because life does not respond to who you say you are. It responds to who you consistently show yourself to be. And now, you are stepping into that consistency. You are no longer questioning whether this change is real. You are beginning to embody it, live it, to move through life with a sense of identity that is grounded, clear, and aligned. And Archangel Michael is guiding you to fully accept this, not as something temporary, but as who you are now. Type "I embody my true self" in the comments if you accept this transformation. Blessing code 1111 is now sealing your identity in clarity, strength, and alignment. There is one final truth that must be spoken, and it is not meant to create fear but to bring clarity with urgency. Because everything you have heard, everything that has been revealed, everything that has awakened within you now leads to a single point of decision. What you do next matters. Not in a distant, abstract way. Not someday, not eventually. But now, in this exact moment where your awareness is at its highest, where your spirit is most open, where the message has fully reached you. Because moments like this do not stay open forever. There are windows in life where clarity arrives with precision, where understanding is not clouded, where direction feels unmistakable, where something within you says this is real, this matters, and this is one of those windows. But here is what most people do. They feel the clarity and then they delay. They recognize the truth and then they return to patterns. They feel the shift and then they slowly drift back into what is comfortable. Not because they want to lose alignment, but because they underestimate the importance of acting while the awareness is fresh. And this is the warning Archangel Michael is bringing forward. If you ignore this moment, the awareness does not disappear, but it becomes quieter. The clarity you feel now begins to fade under distraction. The direction that feels up is now become blurred in by and your thoughts, and your habits, and your environments. Not because the truth has changed, but because you stepped away from it. And when that happens, the same cycles begin to repeat. The same patterns return. The same confusion reappears. Not as punishment, but as a consequence of unacted awareness. Because awareness without action cannot transform your life. It can only show you what needs to change. And if you choose not to act, then what needs to change remains the same. This is why this moment is critical. Because you are not in the same position you were before hearing this message. You now see more. You now understand more. You now feel more clearly what is aligned and what is not. And with it comes responsibility. Not pressure, but responsibility to yourself. To not ignore what you already know. To not silence what your spirit is showing you. To not return to patterns simply because they are familiar. Because every time you choose over-aligned, you create distance between who you are and who you are becoming. But the opposite is also true. Every time you act on what you know, you strengthen your path. Every time you choose alignment over comfort, you accelerate your growth. Every time you trust your awareness, you deepen your clarity. And this is where the blessing begins. Because the same moment that carries warning also carries opportunity. An opportunity to step fully into who you are becoming. An opportunity to break patterns that once controlled you. An opportunity to move forward with clarity that is no longer uncertain. But this opportunity requires movement. It requires you to take what you have felt, what you have understood, what you have recognized and apply it. Not perfectly, but consistently. Because consistency transforms awareness into reality. And as you begin to do this, something powerful unfolds. Your path becomes clearer than it has ever been. Your decisions become more precise. Your energy becomes more stable. And the life you are moving toward begins to take shape in ways that once felt distant. This is the blessing attached to this moment. Not something external being given to you, but something within you being activated through your choices, and Archangel Michael leaves you with this. You are not here by accident. You did not hear this message sluce adikakuyeno. You were meant to reach this point of awareness. But what you do with it will determine everything that follows. So do not ignore this moment. Do not delay what you already know. Do not step back into patterns when your spirit is clearly guiding you forward. Because this is your threshold. And once you cross it fully, your life will not move the same way again. Type I accept the shift in the comments if you are ready to move forward fully. Blessing code 1212 is now sealing your path with clarity, protection, and forward momentum. As this final revelation settles into your spirit and you stand at this threshold of decision, understand this. Every message like this is a flame that God is using to awaken countless souls who are still searching for clarity. When you release your support through Super Thanks with a PayPal link in the description, you are not helping a platform. You are advancing a divine assignment that breaks chains and restores vision in others. The Lord declares, "Test me in this and see if I will not open the windows of heaven." And this is your moment to step into that living promise. Let this rise within you now. I am sowing into the very light that awakened me. This is not a casual act. It is a prophetic response to what God has placed in your hands in this moment. What you release now becomes a river flowing into lives that are still in darkness, and heaven marks your obedience with multiplication. Do not hesitate. Step forward in faith, release your seed, and become a vessel through which God's word continues to reach the world.